Hi, David.
Hi, Brian.
Right. I think we're all ready to go.
Okay.
And there are people watching, which is always a good sign.
Always a bonus.
So I think we may as well just get started.
It's probably my mum, to be fair. So.
No. Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this next Ffoton live stream. Emir can't make it tonight, so I am quite happily filling in to speak to David. Just before we, sorry, I'm Brian Carroll, by the way, from Ffoton. Just before we start, I thought if some people hadn't spotted it, I'd just update you that we've extended for another few weeks, well, until the 30th of June, the photography survey 2020 that we've been running. There was no reason actually to stop it. It was a self-defined deadline, really, but still with the aim in the autumn to post all the results. But we've had over 200 responses so far, so we thought, why not keep it going until the end of June? And if as responses were still coming in, why stop it? So we'll keep it going for another few weeks. So hopefully gather a few more. If you haven't filled it in, I do encourage you, please go and add your voice and your opinions and your views to that. Because we intend to hold some conversations afterwards about the findings on it and try and get as many more opinions and discussions going around what the findings came up with. So that's the survey. But tonight is all about David Collyer. Welcome, David.
Thanks for asking me.
Very, very welcome. I think it was a must, really, because we'd had Glenn, one of your colleagues, and that story will come out as we go, on a few weeks back with his work. And we're in that unique position, I think, in Wales, unless you know otherwise.
No, I don't think so. I think that, as far as I'm aware, it's the two of us. And Glenn's book arrived on my doormat today, and it's fantastic, really good work. So it's right. for the two of us to be in such a small unit and to have made a body of work which, if you listen to people in the know, is going to be historically important. It's been great. It's been quite surreal, really.
Yeah. But anyway, welcome and thanks for doing this. It's much appreciated.
No, you're welcome.
And I'm really looking forward to hearing the story of your work. But that's David on Instagram. That's me on Ffoton, and my two personas offline and Ffoton. But let's get straight into the work for this evening. So the title was All Under a Day's Work, and we'll come to the book as we go through. But I think I'll put up that first still, but could you just give us a quick overview, David, of who you are, how you get into photography, and how this kind of unique situation came up?
Yeah, of course. So I'm an operating department practitioner working for the NHS, working at Neville Hall in Abergavenny in Wales. I've been there 3 years this month, or this week, in fact. And before that, I was working in hospitals in Bristol. And my partner lives in Abergavenny, and I hit 50 and just decided it was time to take a slight step down the career ladder, because I was a band higher than I am at the moment, and come and move out to Wales and live with my partner. I've got 2 kids in Bristol. They're of the age that they were happy for me to make the move. And really just sort of concentrate on having a life outside work. And I've always been a photographer, I say I've always been a photographer. I've been a photographer for 30 odd years. And I decided that I would have a good crack of the whip with that as well. And, so it's worked out incredibly well, really. But I cut my teeth in newspaper darkrooms and with press photographers back in the early to mid 80s. My father was a newspaper editor and journalist, so I spent a lot of my childhood hanging out with the press snappers, learning all the sort of vital skills in life, which I've mentioned before on sort of other interviews. The important things for a 14-year-old: how to take photos, how to roll your own cigarettes, and how to buy a pint in a pub when you're underage. Things that cynical old journalists can teach you. So, but I mean, you can probably see from my style that it's very much an old school reportage style photography, and I still shoot film. I shoot digital, but predominantly I shoot film.
And I believe it was all film on this particular.
All film, all in fact shot with a tiny little Olympus XA3 camera, which I could just put on a lanyard and stick inside my scrubs. I'd thought about shooting it on digital for ease, really, but I made the decision about three and a half years ago to go back to shooting film. And I just thought, I'd kind of be true to my personal vision of photography and do it that way. So I was shooting film, and then every couple of days I'd come home and process the film in the sink and scan the negatives.
Okay.
So
before this particular project, then, I mean, was that the norm for you? Would you carry a camera at work?
No, never at work. I mean, I'd always have a phone on me, but never to use as a camera at work. There are very, very strict protocols around taking photographs in hospital. So we were just really lucky that we got permission to actually shoot the project that we did. The management, from line managers all the way up to the CEO of the company, of the trust, were great. They could see that we had a vision to shoot this, and fortunately, most people knew our work already, and they put their trust in us, and we've paid them back with dividends. Really, it's been good.
Well, we'll talk about that more as we go through, but I'll hand it over to you now. So really, I'll drive the slides. Sure. But just take us through the story of the photograph.
Okay, so this photo is actually looking from my left. Dr. Ferry is a consultant anaesthetist. Zoe Benetton, who sat in the middle, is she's a junior trainee anaesthetist, and that's actually me. So obviously I didn't take this photo. Mary, who's one of my colleagues, I sort of handed her the camera, said, "This is how you use it. This is what I want you to shoot," and got the photo. So it's just nice. I mean, you can see that we're all sort of kind of enjoying each other's company. There's a really good camaraderie in theatres. I say in the book that we're very much a family. We're not all best friends all the time. We don't all get on all the time. We're like a family. We fall out. We fall back in love with each other, and it's great. But I just like it. There's an intimacy in that photo, and I think that Mary captured that actually really well. That was at the beginning of a case where we were waiting for a patient. We're in full red PPE, which is what we wear when we're dealing with any patient who either is COVID positive, or any patient who's coming in for a general anaesthetic we treat as COVID positive, even if they're not. And so it's just incredibly oppressive to wear. And one of the things that somebody who reviewed my book said about it was that it made them feel incredibly claustrophobic. And I'm really pleased that they said that, because that's exactly what it's like to work in that environment, wearing that type of PPE. It's really, really oppressive. It's very, very hot. It restricts your breathing. It restricts your hearing. You can't hear what people are saying. It's quite a horrible experience, really, notwithstanding all the psychological issues that you're dealing with around COVID as well.
I mean, typically day to day, your role is an operating department practitioner. Yeah. What is that? I mean,
it's quite a difficult role to explain, really. It's a type of role that people on the outside don't know about, and a lot of people who work in hospitals don't know about. So essentially, we are theatre specialists. So we train. It's a sort of tripartisan approach to the role, in that we're trained to work on the anaesthetic side, on the scrub side of the operation, and then in the post-op recovery. The majority of ODPs, not all, tend to sort of move towards the anaesthetic side, which is what I've done. I mean, for the first couple of years of my career, I worked in recovery as well. But essentially, it's a really difficult role to explain. But I always say to people that it's kind of a bit like a cross between a specialist nurse and a paramedic in the sort of skill sets that we draw on. So we, in the anaesthetic role, work sort of hand in hand with the anaesthetist, managing the anaesthetic area, making sure that they've got everything they need, monitoring the patient, making sure that everything is safe. The standard joke is that we're Robin to the anaesthetist's Batman, really.
Right. So. And are you in theatre then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We have an anaesthetic room and theatre. So yeah, we're there all the time with the patient.
Okay. Cool.
another consultant anaesthetist drawing something up, and then sitting down on the right is Sarah, who's also an ODP, very, very tired at that point, and I think we come to another photo of her later. Sarah was the ODP that was on the front page of the Guardian in the photo that I had there. Just sort of staring into the distance with a 1,000-yard stare on, because just shattered. But again, she's just taking the time to sort of gather her thoughts and get her energy up. Still tired from the day before. This was quite early in the morning, and waiting for a patient. So the doctor here is just putting his gloves on, ready to go in. And I think at that point, so it looks like he's probably getting ready to do a spinal anesthesia, I think, because he hasn't got the full face mask on at that point. But yeah, again, that's in the anaesthetic room, and that's a fairly typical scene. Sarah looks shattered, and we were all shattered all the time. Really, it's a really funny time in that we're used to dealing on the anaesthetic side with the potential of there being emergencies. So we're trained to not only be proactive, but to be reactive to any emergency that happens. So in some ways, we're more sort of well briefed dealing with this type of crisis than some of our colleagues are, because everything we do, there's the element of something potentially can go wrong. So we're there as the backstop to actually to sort of put it right, or to help put it right with the anaesthetist. But the psychological pressures of dealing with COVID were that you never quite knew what was coming through the door. And there was always, although we trusted the PPE that we've got on, there's always this element that you're putting yourself at risk as well. Because, we're watching people incredibly ill. We're watching people die from this, not just in our own immediate environment, but, on the global scale. Yeah, there's the picture. That's Sarah again. And that's the picture that I was really, really lucky to have on the front page of the Guardian.
So let's talk about that then. Did you pitch to the Guardian, or were you filing photographs?
Well, I pitched something completely different to the Guardian, actually. So I was taking photos of people in my street during lockdown, and as far as I'm aware, and as far as I was led to believe by the Guardian, nobody else had pitched that to them. I was one of the first people in the country who was actually doing that. So they were very, very interested in that. And then, of course, news being news, it develops very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, lots of other people, as is the way in photography, had the same idea at the same time. And so that became a story that really just kind of got put on the spike. But during the course of conversations with the picture editors of The Guardian, I'd mentioned that I was shooting this. And they were very, very interested and wanted to see some of the work. And as soon as they saw what I'd shot, they wanted to run with it, and they said that they were going to give me an online photo essay. This was happening simultaneously as the book being published as well. So yeah, so it kind of went quiet for a week. I thought maybe they'd forgotten about it, and then I got the email from them the day before it went live, and they said they were going to put it in print as well. So I looked, over breakfast at the online story in the morning, and cycled into work, pulled up in the local garage to pick up a copy of the Guardian, expecting to have a couple of columns, 2/3 of the way through the paper, and pulled up to the newsstand on my bike, and there I was, or there Sarah was, and almost fell off a bike. So yeah, that was a bit crazy.
No, great, congratulations! And that was the 6th of May, wasn't it?
6th of May,
so, yeah. I mean, how is it now in terms of the environment you're walking into? Say you're back in tomorrow morning, aren't you? So I mean,
I am.
What's it like now compared to when these were shot?
So it's quieter now. It's certainly plateaued. I've been off for a couple of days. Last time I heard, all of the patients had left ITU and had been warded. I understand down at the Royal Gwent, where my other half works, that they've had some new admissions into ITU. I kind of feel that we're in the eye of the hurricane at the moment. Whether the second wave of the hurricane is going to be as virulent as the first, I couldn't tell you, but we're not out of the woods yet by any stretch, I don't think. So we'll see. So yeah, we are. It's a sort of funny environment at the moment, really, because we've stopped a lot of the elective operations that are going on. For better or for worse, we've lost all of the trauma operations that we did at Neville Hall have gone down to the Royal Gwent. A lot of us think that they should come back. There's an awful lot of people that need operations that aren't getting them done because of COVID. So we're quieter than we are normally, pre-COVID. But once it kicks off again, if it does, then we'll be busy again.
I mean, roughly before the book, and we'll come to the book. But how far into this work were you, and what prompted the book?
So we both started shooting, just with a view of doing something with it afterwards.
This is you and Glenn.
Glenn and I, and just sort of having a look and see what we could do. Really, I had thought of. I mean, my New Year's resolution last year and this year was to put a book out. I've got a sort of fairly vast catalogue of work now, and I've been thinking of putting a book out and self-publishing, as a lot of people do these days, and then using that to tout to publishers. But I leaked a couple of images onto social media, onto Instagram, that were anonymous images. You couldn't tell who was in them at all. And Pete Folkus from Static Age, Zine's publisher, actually sort of got in touch with me. We'd both been interviewed for a different podcast by a guy called Flogger, and I'd sort of spoken to him in the past about putting a zine out, and he said, "Look, I'm booked up for 2 years, but if you've got any ideas, by all means pitch them to me, and we'll go from there." But he saw these photos that I put on Instagram and got in touch and said, "Do you fancy putting a zine out?" And I went, "Yeah, I could do. That was not a bad idea." And he said, "You put about 20 photos in it, maybe. Have you got enough to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got about 120 that I'd be happy to publish so far." And he kind of went, "Oh, okay, right. And could you send some through to me and let me have a look at them?" So I did. So I just transferred him a load of files that I had. And he got back to me almost instantaneously and said, "Look, I think we need to do a book with this." Okay, yeah, I'm happy to run with that. Well, I'll be guided by you. I've never put a book out before. And he said, "Give me to the end of the week to put a draft together." And he got back to me by the end of that night. I think this was on a Tuesday. Yeah, God, absolutely. And I think I got an email from him at midnight with a PDF draft, and just had a look at it and thought, "Wow, this looks really good. It looks like a proper book." And so from there, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, within 2 days, this thing had been sent to the publishers on pre-orders, and we sold out the first print run, or on a pre-order within 12 hours. And so we made a second one live instantaneously, and that sold out within 36 hours. And we're now almost sold out. I think we're more than 2/3 of the way through a third print run, which is 3 times as big as the previous 2. But he'd suggested giving all of the profits, my money from it, his money from it, and the printers would only do it at cost to the NHS. And I said, "Well, the NHS is getting so much given to it at the moment anyway. It'll be a bit like, a sort of drop of water in a bucket." So I think one of the areas that's going to really need a lot of attention during this time is mental health issues, because there's going to be an awful lot of fallout from people suffering from lockdown, and also almost like an element of PTSD from what some of the people have been dealing with COVID. So I suggested giving all the money to mental health charities. So everything from the book is being split between Mind and the Campaign Against Living Miserably, or CALM, which is a charity which deals specifically with sort of trying to prevent suicide in men under 45. So I think so far,
good for you.
Yeah, we're up around over £2,000 now, I think, for those charities. So
great.
So yeah, so it's really, really pleasing.
So that's interesting. So 3 editions.
Yep.
First 2 were a run of 100?
100 each, yeah, and the third is 500. And we're thinking we might do a limited edition hardback. The plan was really that we were going to knock it on the head after 3 editions, but I've still got interviews coming up with Amateur Photographer and various other magazines, and potentially a couple of big sort of international analog photography magazines. So I think there will be the scope there to extend the print run and do another one.
And are you still shooting?
At the moment, I'm not. I've taken a hiatus because we're kind of out of the COVID period. But once, if it comes back again, then will start shooting.
Okay. So back to that question I had: how many roughly how many shots do you reckon you'd had, or how many rolls had you shot before the book then?
So before the book went in, I'd shot around about 8 or 9 rolls, and I think I'm up to about 13 or 14 or 15 now. Okay. So not bad. I've had a pretty good hit rate actually from what I've shot. So
do your own processing?
Yeah.
Right.
Kitchen sink
contact sheets.
Kitchen sink processor. Scan them with a digital scanner. So yeah, I use a Plustek. I use the old classic Patterson tanks for hand processing, and then I scan them on a Plustek, and that's it. Do digital contact sheets. Yeah.
Okay, back into the 40s then. So
Okay.
This chap looks amazing.
Andy, the Australian anaesthetist. So so the reason he's wearing what he is not everyone fits the standard FFP3 masks. There are one or two that I struggled to actually fit. We have quite a sort of vigorous fit test where we go through sort of sensitivity testing as well. And Andy is one of the people who didn't fit them. So hence he's wearing a spacesuit. So I always make the joke to him that when you're that tall, you have to wear a spacesuit because your head's outside the Earth's atmosphere. But yeah, so that's why. So he wears. There's a couple of people that wear those, and that's Jess on the left, who is one of the ODPs, and I'm not sure who the person on the right is because unfortunately everyone looks more or less the same when they've got a hat on and a mask on, and. But I think that's one of the recovery nurses who is trying to get some information off Andy at the end of a case about a patient.
Great.
So yeah. So this is a story, a photo which I will, for the rest of my days, kick myself didn't make it into the first edition of the book. There's another version of this where you can see Lauren's face in it. So the story behind this is I walked into theatre and it's at the end of the day, tidying up, throwing out the rubbish. And Lauren is so tired that basically she sat down in a box saying, I'm just going to go to sleep here. And so I just instinctively snapped the image and then snapped it when she sat up. And this is the image that almost everyone in the press, in photography media, other documentary photographers and photojournalists have said this is the image of the whole set. This kind of sums up what it's like to be knackered, and just how slightly crazy that the whole environment that we're working in is. And my mum was a nurse, and I was talking to her about this, and she said, this image for her actually sums it up as well, because she can remember what it was like being a young nurse and just how shattered you would be, dealing with some of the things that you have to deal with. And Lauren's one of the people that I really sort of take my hat off to, because she only qualified this year, along with Sarah as well, who was on the front page of the paper. You got sort of gnarly old dogs like myself who've been around the block several times, and this has been a challenge to us, whereas you've got youngsters like Sarah and Lauren who literally have just qualified within the last 10 months, and all of a sudden they're thrown into this absolute maelstrom. And what a baptism of fire. It's almost like being sent to the front line as some sort of young ingenue, really. And again, sort of ramping that up, we've got colleagues who, like Lauren, but colleagues who are non-registered staff. So, the non-qualified, as they're sort of glibly called, who are the theatre runners and the nursing assistants and the theatre assistants, who've suddenly had to make this step up and go into ITU and, doing things that scare a lot of experienced nurses and practitioners who don't have ITU experience. So to make that step and go and do that, I really salute them, take my hat off to them. I mean, I feel like I've been doing the stuff that I've been trained to do, really. So to me, it's it's not been without its stresses, but for those guys who are going into ITU and doing that, I mean, wow, I salute them. I really do. I hope they get recognised for it.
I mean, on that point, with someone, I mean, you've got people that are visibly shattered.
Yeah, totally.
And you could say even professionally being really challenged and perhaps afraid of looking vulnerable, not just to colleagues, but to an audience, let's say The Guardian, a UK-wide audience or a worldwide audience on the web. how did we ask this question of Glenn? Permissions. Obviously, these people know you because it's colleagues, and in the main, it's colleagues you've stuck to shooting, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Were they all willing to
yeah, they were really. I mean, yeah, there were a couple of people who didn't want their photos taken, and you know, we respected that. You know, there's no point in having a battle with somebody over having their photo taken. But you know, after a couple of days, people got totally used to having a camera put in their face, and the XA is pretty discreet anyway. It's not something, you know, it's not like you're walking in there with a big Canon L lens and it's very, very obvious. So people were fine, really. I mean, you know, there were a couple of sort of joke comments about, oh, you've got me with too many chins, or you haven't got my best side, or why did you take me looking like that? You know, but that's, and my standard line to that was, this is photojournalism, not glamour. So it's, but this photo I really like. So that's Gemma standing up and Wendy, so Wendy. She's a very experienced ODP who, due to sort of family tragedy, missed out on a lot of the sort of what was going on with the COVID crisis, and came back to work sort of later on in the whole sort of cycle. She's just dealt with a COVID case and has had a shower, and Gemma is obviously doing something with her hair, plaiting her hair. Nobody ever offered to do that to me, which I don't understand why, but I feel left out.
Now, is that a real patient? Because his legs don't look well. Never mind.
No, so I didn't shoot any patients. That's a mannequin. I think he's called Carl. He costs about twice what I earn in a year. And as I joked to you earlier, very worryingly, he looks like a dead version of me. I've got a photo of him with my glasses on, and it's really quite disconcerting. So the first time I actually saw him, I walked down the corridor, and he was lying there on a trolley in an anaesthetic room, and looking very much the worse for wear, if not dead, basically. And one of the senior anaesthetists was standing in there on his iPad doing something, and I just kind of walked in and went, "Do you need a hand?" And he went, no, I'm fine. I said, "Are you sure you don't need a hand?" And he went, "Yeah, no, I'm all right." I said, "Well, he doesn't look too well. He looks like he could probably do with something." And he went, "Oh, that's Carl. Have you not met him?" I went, "No." I went and looked at him. I thought, "My God." And it's uncanny. I mean, I'll admit his legs aren't the best, but when you see him from here up, I mean, you know, he's got everything that a middle-aged bloke has. You know, he's got sort of stray hairs coming out of here and bits coming out of there, and you know, it's worrying. It's freaky. But yeah, he costs about twice as much as I earn in a year. So.
So what are your colleagues, what are they training on here? So
they are practicing putting together and taking apart the airway equipment. So there was a special way of putting the endotracheal tube together in order to sort of minimise any sort of aerosol generating sort of vapours or generated vapours coming out. So it's just kind of familiarising themselves with the new techniques and the new equipment that we would be using.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually the first photo that I leaked out onto social media and was spotted by the publisher. So that is a doctor called Kartik who was just putting some gloves on. Excuse me. And I just thought that's quite a good photo. I mean, that's kind of like the classic medical photo. It's like a scene from MASH, isn't it? You know, the doctor will see you now. So it's. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I like the fact that it's got a sort of bit of an anonymity to it as well, but you can quite clearly see what's going on. And also, you know, from an aesthetic point of view, you know, as a photographer, I like the sort of geometric patterns on the apron where it's been folded as well.
So that little, if I remember correctly, the little Olympus camera, it's a little 35mm compact, isn't it? Is that the one with the enclosure closes over the lens? Yeah,
it's the clamshell design. Yeah. So it's. And it's literally just a zone focus point and shoot.
Yeah.
It's
and what film were you? Because I mean, the grainy makes it. Yeah.
Yeah, Kodak Tri-X, and I pushed it to 800 ISO and developed it in Rodinal. So it's got that classic old school photojournalistic grain to it. You know, it's almost like, you know, the look that Robert Capa got on the D-Day beaches. You know, the grain is very, very much accentuated, which really kind of adds to the foreboding in these pictures, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that's me. That was taken by a colleague, Alan, And again, I just sort of handed in the camera, said, "Do you know how to use it? Do this with it. Do that with it. Capture me and frame me like this." And I was absolutely shattered. I'd been about 4 or 5 hours in red PPE at that point, which again is sort of quite a conservative time compared to what some of my colleagues in ITU went through. But I wasn't quite in a puddle of sweat on the floor, but I was pretty damn close. I wasn't sitting down for dramatic effect. I was sitting down because I'm getting on a bit, and I was feeling every minute of it, really.
Yeah.
And, funnily enough, I joke in the book about, we're all worried about our kidneys, and I'm having investigations on mine at the moment. Probably exacerbated to an extent by the fact that we're just dehydrated all the time. But and this was that's another ODP on the left in the room, and one of the consultant anaesthetists on the right who's just checking his bleep. His page has just gone off, and that's in the day surgery unit, which had been turned into an overflow ITU. So yeah, I was over there. I like, again, from an aesthetic point of view, I like the sort of geometrical division in that one. So this photo I really like because it shows the tenderness between staff, and one of the things about working in an environment that we do is we're a really good team. We do bond together. We always sort of refer to ourselves as being like a family, and the theatre family, and both Glenn and I have actually mentioned that in our books. And you can see that I think that's Toya, who's one of the ODPs in the middle, is having her PPE put on. And I think she's just about to go over to ITU to work in ITU. And Marinor, who's one of the other scrub nurses, is helping her by sorting her mask or sorting her hat out. And somebody off out of frame to the left is holding her hand and sort of pulling her. So there's that really sort of feeling of tenderness in that one as well, I think, which kind of shows who we are basically.
I mean, you mentioned that you're sort of taking a hiatus at the moment as things have quieted down.
I mean, I've always got the camera on me, and if something I think needs shooting appears, I will shoot it. But I'm not actually going out specifically to create a body of work at this particular time. No,
but I wonder, in that gap, in your gap year,
my sabbatical. Can I call it sabbatical now?
Until if we have a second wave, let's see. But if the book is out now in its 3rd edition, are you taking the opportunity to think about how you would regroup and go back in? Obviously, there's going to be different scenarios, different opportunities, different setups. But I just wonder if you're concentrating on your colleagues and them working, them resting, them getting ready. Are you thinking about sort of new setups or framings that you might try going back into this?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I think
because it's one of these things, isn't it? In terms of laying out a book and sequencing in particular, it's always better to have more than less. But
totally, yeah. And I mean, I'm like most photographers, I'm my own harshest critic. You've got to be, because everyone else is going to critique your work, so you've got to put something out that you are entirely happy with. It's really interesting. When I look at the book, I'm very, very proud of what I achieved with it. And I kind of put it to one side for a couple of weeks and didn't look at it. And with this, interview in mind, I've come back and had a look at it today, and I'm really pleased with some of the shots I've got. There are elements. There's one or two shots which I think are overly grainy, and possibly I would have shot them in a slightly different way. But generally I'm happy with it. I think it's this one I like. This is one of the ones. So Carol, who is sitting at the front, obviously because Vince is at the back and he's not called Carol for obvious reasons. Wasn't overly keen on this because it's not the most flattering shot of her. But I think it's one of those shots that it shows how tired people are, but also this is a coffee break and it shows the social distancing in action. So, one person's having to sit outside the coffee room and we're all inside it with 2 meters between us. So I think things like this kind of show who we are and what it's all been about. And the reason that I chose specifically to point the camera back at the staff and effectively kind of back at myself was that, you know, we're in this sort of weird, sort of strange time at the moment where, you know, we've come out of 4 or 5 years of very, very sort of tribalized political shenanigans in this country with Brexit and then with the election. And, you know, a lot of people have been banging the drum for the NHS sort of leading up to those issues and, you know, and what needs to be done to it. And then all of a sudden this comes along and people are out in the street on a Thursday night, or have been out in the street on a Thursday night, clapping and eulogizing NHS staff and holding us up as heroes. And it's not something that I subscribe to. You know, I mean, I go out and I clap because it's good manners. You know, my neighbours are clapping for me and my partner and the other key workers in the street. So it would be churlish to not go out and show appreciation. But I wanted to humanise that demographic that people are out applauding, and you know, I wanted to show who we actually are as people, and you know, and put a real face to us. You know, we're not sort of demigods, or we're not heroes. You know, obviously there are some heroic acts that have been committed and people who've really stepped up to the mark. But we're, you know, at the end of the day, we're just like everybody else. We go to work and we do our job. You know, we do what we're trained to do, and that at the end of the day is why I called the book "All in a Day's Work." You know, I wanted to show who we are. So this is my personal favourite photo.
I like this one because it's pretty laid back.
It's totally laid back. And so Sadie putting her mascara on, having just come out of the shower and you know, having done a case, and Pete, who has just come in on the afternoon shift. So they're kind of chalk and cheese. You know, Pete's like me. He's from the southeast. He's a South Londoner. He's kind of like me to the nth degree. He's been, you know, doing this job for longer than half of the colleagues have been alive, you know, including Sadie. You know, he's an ex army medic, ex police officer, but also in the TA. So he's been in theatre in Afghanistan, you name it. And there's Sadie, who's 25, so she's, you know, incredibly good, incredibly competent ODP at the other end of her career, really. So you've got that real sort of dichotomy between the two of them. And you know, it's also you've kind of got the white and the black there. Pete in his dark clothes, having just come in on his motorbike, and Sadie, you know, with sort of pale skin and the bag. So it works from an aesthetic point of view, but also, you know, you've just got that real sort of juxtaposition between the two characters in it. And I like the fact that Pete's standing there looking like he's a bouncer as well.
Yeah. So, I've had the benefit of seeing. There's another shot in this sequence, isn't there, where I was thinking, what the hell is she doing? I know she's putting mascara on, but she's using the camera on her mobile phone.
She's using the camera on her phone. Yeah,
and it's exactly. In a bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she'd probably be the first to admit that it wasn't her best ever application of mascara. So
yeah. No, but it's little things like that, isn't it? That's normality goes on.
That's the human touch, isn't it? That's what I wanted to achieve. And actually, that one shot for me epitomizes really what I set out to try and achieve with this project, was just to, you know, to show who we are, really, and just to show that we're just normal people.
Absolutely. So maybe a special edition and a hardback coming, but I just wonder if, I mean, I asked you, you know, were you working on anything else, and you said, "Oh, I can send you another still." Which no, and it's completely different, but it's raised some thoughts in my head. But describe the project first, David.
So the project is called Your Own Personal Jesus. So I'm a complete muso. So a lot of my shots, I mean, are influenced by lines from music or song titles. It's just the way my brain works. You know, if I haven't got a camera in my hand, I've normally got a guitar in my hand, or I'm putting records on. Or, you know, I live for music. So Your Own Personal Jesus is the title of a Depeche Mode song from the 80s or early 90s. I'm not religious at all. It's, you know, my parents were churchgoers. I went to church like a lot of people did. As a child, I even sung in the church choir for a while until I was removed for lack of talent and inappropriate Dr. Martens and a crew cut, I think. But I'm really fascinated by religious symbolism and religious iconography, and religion over the last few years is something that's really sort of come to the fore, particularly as we live in a sort of a more and more sort of multi-ethnic, multicultural society and multi-religious society. And so I kind of wanted to have a look at what religious symbolism meant to individuals. And you look at this picture, and we are so used to seeing scenes of the crucifix, of the crucifixion. But it's absolutely barbaric. It's something that is so ingrained in modern contemporary Western culture. People wearing crucifixes, people having pictures of Jesus or religious icons tattooed on themselves. But this is about the most brutal thing that you could do to a person. And so I'm kind of really sort of fascinated in how people find comfort from absolute suffering. And I guess there is a kind of parallel to what I do professionally within healthcare as well. Do people find God? Do people seek solace in sort of religious comfort? At times of great crisis. I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't think I would. Touch wood. I've never been in that situation, but I think it's just something that fascinates me. And also, from a visual or a graphic point of view as well. I mean, it's a fantastic project to shoot because it's visually it's a real treat, isn't it?
But this situation though, in the whole coronavirus situation, the speed at which it's hit not just this country but the world, and you can see it from some of both your photographs and Glenn's that it's full on just dealing with the immediacy of people's declining health, how quickly it happens, and the whole thing about the vulnerable group being the older age group and people with medical conditions are likely to be some of those people that do cling to religion in whatever form as being almost central to their life. And this is the end of it, and yet you don't see any religious symbols because there isn't time, is there? They don't make it out the operating theatre, they're in ITU.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the time, actually, when you see people coming in for operations or people in ITU, if they are of a religious persuasion, whatever their religion, they often have trappings and trinkets and sort of symbols of their religious faith around. I worked in the middle of Bristol before I came, large Afro-Caribbean population, and you would see it when a lot of the older Afro-Caribbean patients came in, particularly the women. They would often sing hymns when they came in, pre-anesthetic. It was totally normal for people to come in and be singing sort of spiritual songs and things like that. One of the things about COVID is it's actually sort of taken that away. People have been deprived of having their relatives in, of having even the chaplain come in and sort of tend to their spiritual needs. And I always like to do things with my photography or anything in life really that challenged me personally. And so for me, because I am an atheist and because I'm quite a strict atheist, I'm kind of almost sort of scientific in my approach to religion. It's not something I entertain. So it's kind of a challenge to myself to be objective about a subject as well. And I want to do this by actually talking to people and trying to get an understanding of what it brings to them. At the end of the day, I like people. I like my own company. I always kind of describe myself as a sociable loner, really. But one of the things that this crisis has really opened my eyes to is what we value in life, and what's important. And for so many people, it's material trappings, and actually this has kind of turned that on its head, as to the things that we value. I mean, it's silly little things that I've missed, like going and sitting in a coffee shop and having a coffee and watching the world go by. Or I for a few years I've been documenting the Abergavenny market, so just being able to wander into the market and and meet strangers and have conversations and take their photo. Or I'm obsessed with charity shops, going into charity shops, and because I collect photographic books as well, and looking out for bargains and looking out for books and records and things like that. It's just the silly little things that I miss. But moving that onto a grander scale, religion is something that's very, very important in so many people's lives, and actually they've been deprived of their formal worship and going out and doing that. So it's just, I think it's one of the big things that it's kind of one of the big questions of the age that we're in. How it's just something that fascinates me. So I thought I would kind of run with that and see where I can go with it.
Yeah, there's another photographer in Wales, Matthew Einan, who we've had on here on a previous episode. He's a geologist, professionally, but in his spare time, he just always seems to be out with a camera. But one of his own personal projects that he's had running for the last couple of years now is the faithful, and he's basically trying to document off his own back all of the different faiths.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
But I don't know if he's gone into the icons and the trinkets and the symbolism. Maybe he has.
He probably has.
Portraiture that he's doing a lot of.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, there are very few original ideas in photography, and but what you bring to it is your own personal slant on it, and how you do it. I mean, I can't remember when we spoke yesterday whether I told you this, but I got a slightly shirty Instagram message from a photojournalism student in South Wales who suggested that I might have been overly influenced by her work on doorstep photography and social distancing project, and I think the word stolen was actually used, and I just said to her, look, I've been doing this for 30 years, and take a step back and realize that if you think you've had an original idea, 10 people have probably already had that idea, but what you bring to it is your own personal interpretation. That's it. We all shoot the same thing. It's like saying to somebody, I shoot landscapes, you're shooting landscapes, you're copying me. It's the whole thing about, and I don't describe myself as an artist at all. I kind of don't even think of myself as being particularly creative, really. I always think of myself as a documenter of life, but it's the nuances that you bring to your work that make you stand out as an artist in any field, really. And it's nice that somebody can look at your work and say, that's by X, or that's by Y, or that's by Jim Blogs around the corner. If you can put your personal stamp on it and somebody can look at it and identify what you do, then I think you're doing a pretty good job, really. So
we look forward to you finding Jesus in all his various forms with the new project.
Yeah, my mum would fall off her chair if I found Jesus.
But no, that's been great, and it would be good to catch up.
Definitely.
On how that project developed.
Yeah, absolutely. And when the brave new world arrives, so we can all actually leave the comfort of our homes, we should all meet up for a pint as well, and
absolutely
chew the fat and talk photography and life beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all relishing that.
Absolutely.
Have a chat. But thanks for that, David. So that's on Instagram.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, much appreciated. That's the book. 92 pages. That's not bad, is it?
No, that's all right. Yeah. And actually, I think the third edition, which I have in my hand now, is possibly even more. Actually, we put a few more pages in, so it is. Oh no, it's 92 on that one. Yeah, so it was. Yeah, but it's a good thick book. It's not quite A4 size, not quite a telephone directory, but it's.
No, good effort. And third edition, I think that's great. It really is. Yeah.
Too thick to roll up and swat flies with anyway. So it's a proper book, not a magazine.
Yeah. But I think we'll wrap it there. Thanks very much, David.
Cool. All right, Brian.
Been a real pleasure.
Yeah, and, likewise. I've enjoyed it.
Hopefully you don't get to shoot too many more of these COVID pictures.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
And then I can get back to charity shopping and go to the market.
Yeah. But no, kudos to what you're doing. I think everyone's appreciating it.
Cheers.
Stay safe.
Thanks, mate.
And hopefully speak to you soon in person.
And thanks to everyone who watched. Cheers.
Cheers then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.